now I'm finally starting to utilize my graphics card to render this, but it's still incredibly low. 6 to 8% for all of this at this height. This is 6 to 8% rendering capacity right now. Almost all of Europe and Asia and Northern Africa, the Middle East models being rendered simultaneously. Of course, it drops to less than 1% again when I zoom in. So, like this is like less than 1% rendering capacity because it's not rendering anything around that you can't see. Anything that you can't see is not being rendered at the moment. It's cold. So, extremely efficient. And I can look at the entire Earth at minimum zoom, and it's still not even significant in regard to what it's pulling from my graphics to render it. Wrapped up Tangituva. It's now part of Russia, but at one time this was a country. Tangituva. It's the capital. Kizil. It's a city, but it only had a population of 12,000, so I made it a town. It actually became a city like 100 and 112 years ago. Coming together. Identifying all the various mountain ranges. There's a lot of detail, intricate detail in this region. So it's important to me to take my time to map it out properly so it has an accurate layout, and an accurate layout that translates to a layout that makes sense in regard to terrain distribution. People that designed infrastructure over the centuries aren't exactly dummies. There's usually a rhyme to a reason as to why locations are placed at certain coordinates on the globe, be it access to materials, raw materials, riverways, agricultural plains, etc. Industry is built around the way of life. Infrastructure is built around the way of life. It's to improve the process of sustainment and living. That's what infrastructure does in the long run. And even ancient architecture has a rhyme to a reason as to why and where it was placed. So, That's why it's pretty important for me to get this right. It's one of the reasons. I've come up with my supply model. Very simple, elegant, and quite efficient. Integer-based. I'm converting everything integer-based. Everything that I can within reason to integer-based variables. Supply models are pretty simple. Terrain applies a penalty. Infrastructure applies a value. Transport negates penalties, but doesn't provide any supply because it's just dead asphalt or concrete or rail ties. It doesn't literally do anything, so it shouldn't actually generate supply. In comparison to all the games I played in the past, like Supreme Rule or like the supply model propagates. And that ties into the gameplay mechanics, which is also elegant and whatnot, but that's not how I'm structuring my game. So terrain by itself doesn't generate any supply. Supply doesn't propagate. Supply is allocated only with infrastructure, power plants, ports, rail stations, production facilities, and etc. Localities like towns and capitals carry a supply bonus. But otherwise, it'll be a very strict supply model. Units won't require supply to function. They'll require supply to refuel the logistics departments that refuel units. So in other words, the Gobi Desert, you could be out in the middle of the Gobi Desert, you could have zero supply, and you could have a war going on there as long as you're keeping it logistically supplied with airplanes or supply trucks or some kind of replenishment. You'll be able to be sustained. That's going to make logistics more meaningful, and it'll also make the supply model more distinctive and definitive in the gameplay. So, pretty excited about that. Like I said, it's all integer based. 0 through 100 would equate to a percentage, 0% to 100%, and facilities are additive. You got a default bonus for a capital or a city, and then whatever is built around it will add to that hex's supply value. It can exceed 100 in value, but it cannot exceed 100 percentage of supply. It's regulated to 100% supply is the maximum amount of supply. But terrain applying the penalty will offset that. So I mean, if I have this city, it's a capital, and I have facilities around it that equate to, let's say, 125 points supply, it'll say it's 100% supply, and then it'll get the terrain penalty for rivers. There is no supply penalty. So they would just aggregate to 125 and display 100 unless a facility is damaged or destroyed. That removes a portion of those points from that total. In another case, let's just say there's a capital called let's call it Andorra. Let's just pretend this place is called Andorra. It's a capital, it's a fancy capital, it doesn't really exist. But mountains apply, no, I'm just kidding, Andorra does exist. It's a fantasy capital, or it's a capital in the mountains. So it'll have its 50 points of supply applied to it. It'll have a penalty, it's minus 65 supply for where it's at in the mountains. So you'll have to build infrastructure around it, or you'll have to have infrastructure accompanying it to yield any supply value. Otherwise, it'll just read 0%, and you won't get any bonuses for production or anything like that, which makes sense because manufacture in indoors is probably expensive, and probably the bulk of raw materials have to be imported, and that's also costly, importing shit to high mountain ranges. So it's probably pretty expensive to be a manufacturer in Andorra, so that will reflect with accuracy in the game with that supply model as it is, and that makes the supply model incredibly easy to implement, incredibly easy to manage, and very easy to distribute without having to implement any features that cause supply to propagate. It will propagate for damage, or actually it wouldn't be propagating, it would be adjusting based on either damage and percentage of damages dealt to facility at certain thresholds. Will adjust the supply to a percentage that conforms to that factor. Propagate is when, like, this has 100% supply, so this one has 90%, this one has 80%, this one has 70, 50, 40. That's propagating. It's when the supply model fans out or radiates from a central hub. So I'm not going to have that in my game. I like that for Supreme Ruler, but this is going to be mechanically a different game. Grand strategy, similar geopolitical plot, but I mean, it's going to be significantly different in the way the mechanics operate, and it'll be unique and interesting to play on its own. That's my video update, progress, love chat.